A good Erev Shabbos, Parshat Miketz. Welcome back to Parnasa Insights into the Parsha. We'd like to welcome all of our listeners, including our Torah Anytime listeners around the world. So especially in today, in a digital world, we're all familiar with the idea of the shout-out, the endorsement, the testimonial. You know, who can compare to that, getting that message, which we try not to look at, but when you get that little message from Gmail telling us that someone mentioned you in a comment, and quickly, when no one's looking, we just go look and see what somebody said about us. The truth is that we live in a world in which the idea of giving praise is a good thing. Endorsements, testimonials has become more and more common. Now, where do we find the makor, a source in the Torah for how to respond to that endorsement, how to respond to that praise, how to respond to that testimonial? And the truth is that it's found in this week's Parsha. This week's Parsha, we find Yosef HaTzaddik is sitting in prison, and Paro calls him up after the wine butler gave him some type of a shout out. It wasn't really such a good shout out, but he gets him called in front of Paro. And you can imagine this moment, Paro's standing there with Yosef, and he's like, Yosef, I've heard good things about you. I heard you have a good reputation. Perhaps you could be my man for the job. And what does Yosef say? Yosef says the following words. V'yan Yosef es Paro leimar. It's the first thing he said to Paro. Biladai Elokim yaneh eshloim Paro. That's it. Translation. Hold on, Paro. Don't talk about me. I'm a nothing. Ein oid movadai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does everything. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu perhaps will help you to understand your dream. Now, can you imagine this moment? Right? This wasn't just an endorsement on LinkedIn. This wasn't just any job interview. Right? Imagine over here, this is Yosef who is in prison. He now is being called in front of not just a manager, right? HR. He's being called in front of Paro, right? The leader, one of the leader of one of the world powers. Talk about an opportunity for a promotion. And then he calls him in, and the first thing he says to him is, I heard you know your stuff. I heard you're good at what you can do. And his response is, Ein oid movadai. It's just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Paro, forget about me. It's all about Hashem. Can you imagine such a thing? Yet this was really the secret of Yosef's success. This was the secret of the chen, of the grace that was found within Yosef with everyone that he met, because he was able to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, what does it take for a person to do that? Really, imagine being on that job interview. If you've ever been on a job interview, and to be able to say that, right? What does it take? It takes a real emunah. It takes a real emunah, an authentic emunah, something that a person's really living with, right? Not just giving lip service to. Right? There's a famous story. The 𝗟𝗚 𝗠𝗏 says he was one time very inspired because there was a person who was, I think he was in the lumber business, right? And he was a very successful businessman, and he saw that at the end of his day, he was doing his calculations, right, of everything that he did, all the business that came in, that went out, so on and so forth. And on his paper, right, that he was there and he was doing all of his calculations, right, he said, Sach HaKol, at the end of the day, what's my final, on the balance sheet, profit, what's there? Sach HaKol, at the end of the day, he wrote, Ein oid movadai. Ein oid movadai. There's nothing else besides HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the 𝗟𝗚 𝗠𝗏 was inspired by this. Now, I don't think that this person was broadcasting it or tweeting it out on his feed or WhatsApp status. Look what I did, The idea is that the only way that a person gets to this ability to be able to stand Paro in the face, stare him in the face, to be on that job interview, to be able to say that, is someone who's a Baal Avodah. Somebody in his own avodah, when no one's looking, he's always being mechazik, himself of the fact that really everything's a HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Where it's Be'ezus Hashem, it's not just a culture, Be'ezus Hashem. When he says Be'ezus Hashem, he really means it. He really means that I don't know if I'm going to be successful in this phone call right now. I don't know if I'm going to be successful in this business right now. I don't know if we're going to be able to achieve what our targets are. Be'ezus Hashem, what does that mean? Be'ezus Hashem, only if HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it to take place. And when we have that clarity, when a person lives with that clarity, Yosef lived with that clarity. So then when a person gets that endorsement, right? When a person gets that testimonial, when a person gets that shout out, So then he's able to respond. Right? Just imagine you saw this on LinkedIn one day. Somebody gives someone a shout out and an endorsement, and the response, what the comment is? The comment isn't, hashtag this person to make sure to call him so he comes back and he shares it with his friends. It's not the strategy to be able to get more people to see your comment. The response isn't just a formal thank you. The response is, Biladai! Don't get too excited. That great report I did for you, the fact that you just won the market, I made that great video. Biladai! It's 𝗟𝗓𝗧 𝗦𝗧. Let's get serious here. It's 𝗟𝗓𝗧 𝗦𝗧, right? Can you imagine, what Yosef's headline on LinkedIn would have looked like? He was a very successful businessman. What his headline on LinkedIn looked like. And I think that for each one of us, including myself, this is a real avodah. It's a real check-in. It's a real calling. This parsha is calling us to be able to really look inside of ourselves, at least internally, when we get those thank yous, right? When we get those testimonials, when we get those endorsements, at least internally, let's start. We should feel good about our achievements. Hashem wants us to feel good about our achievements. It's important. But we should recognize that ultimately everything is coming from the 𝗟𝗓𝗧 𝗦𝗧. And when we do that and we respond with another, and then we have the courage, right, even on a social platform, to be able to say, I want to say it was Hashem. I've appreciated, you thank me, I thank Hashem. This is the key for us to be able to channel in the tremendous abundance and shefa and success that Yosef had in his life. Have a good Shabbos.